Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, wherever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. That shot, I can't believe it. I'm Bushka on Blitz. The Cent 701 should never let you down like that. This is the Centurion 701. The reason I'm making a video on this tank is they've changed it a lot over the past 6 months. It's undergone, maybe even a little bit longer than that, it's undergone huge issues and balance issues. It's an incredibly tough tank to balance. It was always a tank that ran a particularly interesting ammo loadout. It has a high explosive squash headed shell. That's called HESH. And it is low penetration, high damage, which is something I think is brilliant in terms of the game. And I mean, having a premium shell that is less penetration but more damage is something I would have loved to have seen earlier in the game. And for a lot longer. But the tank was incredibly tough for new players to drive. Because you play all these other tanks within the game where you do standard damage, and this is old World of Tanks Blitz. You would do standard damage with all your shells. You wouldn't even do less damage with your premium shells. They do the same damage, they just have more penetration. And then you get to this tank, and you would have a shell that not only did it do less penetration with its premium shell and more damage, but it did it with high explosives, so it had a whole amount of variables going on with it. And high explosive that's also modeled differently to a normal shell, because it doesn't splash like a normal shell does. You'll see it bounce all the time if you're running HESH. It's a bizarro thing. And newer watch this shot. I think it's this shot. This is hilarious. Top little nothing, 430 into that tiny little hole on the top of the E100 at 250 meters. That is one of the reasons why this tank is so special, is the gun, the L7A1, or what's it called now? The 105mm L7A1 is the gun that actually runs heat on this tank now. This is the HESH gun. So Wargaming tried to balance it so that it was actually useful, but the problem is, to do that, they gave it heat shells instead of premium HESH, but they also kept HESH shells, full penetration 210mm HESH shells, which was great because there was no problems. People that really were good at using the Cent 701 already were like, so I now get high penetration shells as well as high damage shells, as well as really good normal like APCR shells that do 255mm a pen. Sign me up. And Unicums went nuts and just destroyed everyone in this. So then what they did was they lowered the rate of fire, which, you know, was a bit annoying. And then they gave it 2 guns. And now, which is something I suggested years ago when I was in Minsk in a padded room with all the blokes from Wargaming. I said, just give the thing 2 guns. Give the tank, the FV and the Cent 2 guns. So you get to choose between, if you're a newer player and you don't know what you're doing, run a gun with heat. And if you're a more experienced player and you want a tank that's different and unique, run a gun with HESH. And that's where they went. And finally, all this time later, they then, because the Cent has also had, it's had buffs apart from that to its rate of fire and everything over time, and then it got nerfed back, and then it's finally been buffed back to a rate of fire of 7.18 rounds a minute when fully kitted out, which is just hilarious that we've gone all this way. Look at this muppet of a WZ-120 who just went and killed himself. For anyone who's wondering why I think that's a stupid idea, when you kill yourself or drown yourself, you take full damage. You have to pay full damage in a repair shop, which means you cost yourself money. If you just put 1 shot or 2 shots into the enemy and earn some money back, you are going to pay less in repairs at the end of the day than if you just go and drown yourself. But people are idiots, so they go and do it. So now we've got the Centurion 7-in-1 in what I hope is its final incarnation, with a lovely gun if you want to run HESH, a lovely gun if you want to run heat, and just all points in between, which is just, you know, hilarious. So let's talk about this. Both the tanks have the same, both the guns have the same penetration numbers, 255mm on their standard 105mm, okay, their APCRNs, which gives you 2,544 DPM, which is not bad for a Tier 9 medium. Not good, but not bad. it's not bad overall when you consider that if you're running the HESH gun, you can pump that up to 3,200 DPM. Now, HESH has a 440 alpha hitting stopping power, but because it's a high explosive shell, if they angle away at all slightly, or you hit a module with this thing, you're going to do less damage. But I think that's amazing because it's a unique tank. It's completely unique. It's a high alpha damage medium tank. It is everything the WZ-120 wishes it was. You can see I've just pumped that Leopard 1 over there pretty hard. Because with the WZ-120, Wargaming tried to introduce a high alpha damage medium in a tier that already had a high alpha damage medium. It wanted to do it, though, with a tank that had a strong turret, and it's already got a tank with a strong turret. This thing, with a high alpha damage shell. The funny thing is, if you run calibrated shells on the Cent 7 and 1, you get a 440 alpha shell in a gun that has .293 dispersion and 255 millimeters of APCR pen on its normal rounds that do 350 alpha. But on its 440 alpha shells, it gets 231 millimeters of pen, which is higher pen than the standard AP rounds of the WZ-120. So you're basically looking at a tank that just outclassed the WZ-120 in every facet of the game, in my opinion. And if it was running HESH shells, you ended up with a tank with 600 more DPM with running calibrated shells and HESH with a bigger alpha round on a much more accurate gun with 10 degrees of gun depression as opposed to the 3 degrees of gun depression of the WZ-120. Now, if you're watching this to find out whether the Cent 7 and 1 is worth getting, it absolutely is a must-own. If you want to run this tank and learn how to play a gun depression medium with limited mobility, but great penetration, then you should be doing this. And watch this. I'm going to lose this game, right? But I am going to try to COD a tier 10 monster while also dealing with a Leopard 1. And because I've got a little bit of experience in Blitz and I've been playing for a while, I very nearly pull this all off. That's an abominably low roll. We got a very lucky bounce somewhere along the way here. I can't remember where. There it is. But that's the front of a tier 10 heavy, and I can pen the lower glacis on an IS-7, which is pretty important when you consider that an IS-7 is an absolute monster. And I am using every little bit of guile and deception I have here to get this job done. Using, you can see that Leo 1. Now I've got to deal with the IS-7. We're pushing down around him. We've got enough mobility just to make him struggle, and then we're going to try and angle really, really quickly so he gets tracks or something, and then we can nearly get him killed. We've got great pen on our APCR, and we clear him. That's a really interesting tank, don't you think? I mean, that to me is a really interesting tank. That's a tank that can fulfill a multiple amount of roles, and is amazing hull down, as you saw in the first game, and has 10 degrees of gun depression, so it doesn't struggle to get those shots off. And it's so underrated. So many people just don't know about it or don't play it. And that baffles me because this tank now, there is no excuses not to play this tank. It has the HESH gun. It has the rate of fire. It has the penetration. If you want to run heat, if you don't feel up to the task, then you still have a tank that has an amazingly strong, exceptionally good laser-like gun and can also, go hull down and doesn't miss many shots. And that's something I mention all the time is gun depression, gun depression, gun depression. You will see while you're watching these games, there are so few moments where I can't get a shot off. If you're running the WZ-120, you will know that tank is abysmal because there are so many moments where you quite simply cannot get a shot off because you have 3 degrees of gun depression. Now that means you can only poke the gun down 3 degrees from the turret. This thing can put it down 10, which means although it's got a very weak lower chassis, that lower chassis doesn't need to be exposed to get shots off. Now again, you've seen it perform in tier 10 games. We've finally got a tier 9 game, and I'm going to take it right into the teeth up here and start working my my Cent 701 magic and using it as basically a little bit of a frontline heavy, a little bit of a medium. And the reason it works like this is because at 350 to 440 alpha on your shells, you can literally trade with tier 9 heavies. You can comfortably DPM and work against them with this gun, this 105mm L7B it's called now. There's an IS-8. We've got a great Pen APCR shell for him. There we go. He gets double tapped. We're now going to reset our camo. Just waiting. Now you're going to see we get pushed on across on the left. I'm just looking to use the gun depression here. Got a strong turret, got good 10 degrees of gun depression, looking to make a little bit of love. We've got 3 TDs, they've got 3 TDs. I'm wondering whether, oh, wonder no longer. There you go, there's a T-54 lightweight. Now he's made a really aggressive move around the back. The problem with that for a 54 lightweight when you're in a tier 9 game against a tank like this is I've got so many more hit points and I've got so much more alpha strike damage, like 465 into him. And then we're going to bash him a little bit. We've dropped adrenaline. 479 into him. We get a bounce because we're face hugging and he can't get the gun down. And then we finish him off with an AP round. We're now going to back up. There's a tort coming across there. You can HESH, premium HESH, the hatch of a tortoise. That is absolutely doable, but it's not guaranteed. There's little bits and pieces on the tortoise that just won't pop HESH. I'm not certain how much that does, but we've gone in, we've done some damage with him with HESH. Backing it up, resetting our camo. Motoring forward, just waiting for him to pop around again. WZ-120 is over there. There's a tort again. We're going to push down. So it looks like we got a good 400 odd alpha into him first time. 367 the second time. Moving back down, and all we've done this game is basically just played smart. I mean, really, that's all we've done. And the tank rewards it tremendously. I mean, we pushed to the front, then we pushed into the tank that went behind us, and then we just poked and doked and smoked that little tort, and now we just finish off the Mod 1. If we can get any damage into him, Ripper, but it's all just farming and gravy now. Great tank. Fully rejuvenated, cannot recommend it highly enough. If you can learn to play this tank, you will learn so much about the game. You learn about the weak points and the armor variances of other tanks. You learn about the vagaries of high explosive shells. You learn to use gun depression as opposed to just raw DPM. You learn to be patient and to use limited mobility, because it is not incredible mobility, but it is enough to get the job done. You learn all these things, and it will make you a better tanker if you learn to play this 7-on-1 correctly. I can't recommend it highly enough. You can see there, WZ-120 does have the armor buff, armor advantage, obviously, on the 7-on-1. Can't knock that. But he can't shoot me here. He just can't get the gun down. Like, no way to shoot. He's got no way to get the gun down there without cresting that ridge. That's gun depression. I'm Bushka on Blitz, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Look after yourselves. Be nice to your mum. Be nice to your dog. And stay safe on the battlefield.